Hello and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast, live edition this time. This is very fun. I am joined here, as always, by the man who just got traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars for a sixth-round pick, Kyle. Kyle, how are you doing?
Yeah, I mean,
from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Screwed it up. My bad.
No, the first way was right because if the Jacksonville Jaguars are looking to tank, they probably add me to the team. But I could slot in as their like nickel corner and try and make some work. But I'd get worked. But it is what it is. How are you doing?
Yes, doing very well. Nickel corner. That's the position you would. I don't think I could. I think I would try to just do something that would just be completely like. I think if I was a defensive tackle, I at least wouldn't actively be hurting my team, right?
Yeah, so there's a funny story when I played youth football way back in the day. I was like the smallest kid on the team, and I was supposed to be a running back and safety. I broke my finger right before the season started, so they had me out for the first couple weeks. And the coach was like, "Oh, we're kind of out of position." So that first year, I played offensive tackle and defensive tackle as the smallest kid on the team. But I know everybody wants to hear my youth football stories.
Yes. Next week we have Kyle doing an hour of his youth football stories. Before we get too far into this, just letting you guys know how this is going to work. We're going to talk about all the news, everything that happened in the surprise cuts and everything like that. We're going to do that for about 10 minutes, and then we'll get on to we're going to break down every single game. We're going to talk about our predictions for every game. We have a game of how we're going to decide our picks for it, so it's going to be a very fun show. Everyone in the comments, feel free to ask us questions. We'll try to answer some questions as it goes along. I see Luke G's field review in the comments. You remember him from our podcast where we ranked the top 25. What up, Bill? Luke, very nice to have you in here. But yeah, so let's just get into it. Let's talk about some of the news that happened. I think the biggest news, the Clowney signing this morning for $12 million, which he can make up to $15 million. Definitely a pretty big surprise. What were your thoughts about this?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I saw that was just so surprising was like, I was like, is he actually going to wait into the season before he signs a team? And then, of course, you saw the things that he was changing his agents, which, of course, tells you that he was unhappy with this whole process and how it all went down. And then I think the other thing, too, just from a football standpoint, is I think this was something we touched on in our AFC South preview, that I feel like this just makes a ton of sense for both sides. Clowney gets to prove himself, and this was probably, I would say, for Tennessee, one of their bigger position needs, especially after losing Casey in the offseason. This is a guy that's going to be, you think, oh, well, you signed Vic Beasley. I guess that makes sense. But you're immediately able to upgrade Vic Beasley, who I think has the most like fake 8 sacks in a season. So immediately upgrading a guy like that, I feel like you just do it every time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and again, it's the kind of thing where it's like you can have 3 edge rushers play consistently. I think Clowney can now be the number 1 guy. I still stand by. I don't think Clowney's an edge rusher. I think he's would be way better as a 5 tech. They want to play him edge, then they can play him edge. And I think he still is very valuable there. I just think the thing about, I made a video. I haven't posted it yet, but I've made one. And basically, I compare Clowney to a bull, where he has great straight line speed, great power. His problem is sometimes trying to get around, which is why he sometimes can disrupt plays and not finish them. But again, for $12 million, it's kind of a bargain. I feel like not too much to add on that. I think we probably both agree for the most part. Let's talk about the Lynn Bowden trade, because I in rare spot for me had to criticize the Raiders. This is not something that is used to me. Usually that's your job. So. Yeah. I think that, there's no way you can talk about this and have it not be considered a mistake, in my opinion. Either a mistake was drafting him or the mistake was getting rid of him now. I just didn't fully understand this move. I think that they could have probably found a way to make it work. I think that he's very talented, and it just seemed like they wanted him to be a running back, which he's just not a running back. I've been saying this the whole time. Don't make him a running back. He's not a running back. I mean, that's just speculation, but I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know if you remember what we were talking about way back at the NFL draft with him. The one thing I always said about him is it intrigues me. The one thing I was always worried about is that he's going to get sort of that Tavon Austin syndrome, where everyone's kind of fascinated by the prospect and how many different things he can do on a football field. But then he's not actually going to be able to do anything on a football field because they're trying to use him as like this Swiss Army knife rather than actually use him as a football player. And I feel like, I don't know what the deal was with the Raiders. I get both sides because, I mean, if anybody was the biggest loser in a training camp situation, it was probably him, because some of the reports about him just not picking up anything, obviously that's not what you want to see heading into your rookie season. I guess I can understand both sides. I feel like they did get good value for a guy they felt like was a disaster through training camp, and getting 2 picks, especially a 4th round when they only spent a 3rd round on him, I think is a pretty good deal. But at the same time, how did you not see any of this during your pre-draft buildup? Or is this a thing because of COVID that it's kind of missed during the pre-draft buildup that you usually get, is that one-on-one conversation with him to understand a lot of that, and not getting a lot of that because of COVID forced the draft pick and then the immediate trade after getting him in the building?
Yeah. I think that's a good point, especially about the COVID stuff. Let's move on now to Tampa Bay. Again, we're just going to try to go beat by beat for a few of these. Tampa Bay, a couple of interesting moves. Picked up Josh Rosen, also picked up Fournette. I see Bucks Skull Gang in the house. Said, surprise, Fournette went to the Bucks. This is kind of one of those things with Fournette. Like, I love this move as a Tampa Bay fan. The Rosen thing, he's a bust. He's terrible. I'm not really worried about that. Fournette, I think that this is, one of the stats that surprised me was he was 5th in all-purpose yards last year among running backs. It was 6th overall because Michael Thomas had so many receiving yards, but 5th among running backs in all-purpose yards. Like, he's clearly he's without a doubt a top 32 starter. Like, I think that this is an easy move, and they got him from a low price tag because he wanted to be able to double dip with the money he's getting from Jacksonville.
Yeah, I feel like the one thing with Fournette that I was always excited about if he went to a new team is I feel like he's going to be a great downhill runner, and he's a very underrated receiver. And I think that's 2 things that Tom Brady likes to do really well is he likes to use his running backs to catch out of the backfield is the obvious one. And it's a very direct running game approach. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of misdirection and trying to turn Fournette into this guy on the outsides, which just didn't make a lot of sense for me in Jacksonville. And I really wanted New England to get him because that's very much they very much run that power run game with the strong interior offensive line they had. And I feel like this makes a lot of sense with Tampa too, who also has a very good interior offensive line. If you get him between the tackles, I think he could still be a very good running back in this league.
Yeah, I agree. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Again, it's such a low risk, high reward move. You gotta like it. Speaking of which, we have something that's another, I think, definitely a low risk. I'm not sure how high of a reward it is. We have some Lions fans here. Adrian Peterson going to the Lions. This is an interesting one because I've already made a video talking about how to have a huge plethora of halfbacks. They're adding one more now. Adrian Peterson. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just like I feel like it can't be anything but positive, especially for a guy like DeAndre Swift, because DeAndre Swift is essentially gaining so much veteran experience from a guy like Adrian Peterson, who's one of the most veteran running backs in the league, obviously, besides our senior citizen, Frank Gore. That's about that's as much experience as it gets. So getting a guy like that in the building makes a lot of sense for a guy like him to learn. He feeds a lot of information to him. He obviously knows the division pretty well. And then I think the other thing that makes a lot of sense with it too is that you just can't expect 16 games out of Kerryon Johnson. And at this point, I'd be surprised if you get 10 games out of Kerryon Johnson. So having as much insurance as you can for a guy like Johnson, I think makes a lot of sense. So I understand the signing for the Lions perspective. I thought that Adrian Peterson might try to go to a team that he would be able to start. Maybe that position just wasn't around, so he just decided to jump on a team he could get. I don't know about that, but I thought there was positions, whether it was he could go to I'm trying to think off the top of my head now who else needed a running back. He could go.
There really aren't many.
Yeah, that's true. That's the thing. But there was still, New England has been openly shopping for running backs because of the Sony Michel, whether he was going to be ready to go week 1. There's teams like that were out there. I just feel like he's clearly 3rd in this depth chart order, unless things aren't going well for Swift, but I haven't heard anything like that.
Yeah, and that's not even to mention Bo Scarborough. You have Ty Johnson. You got a lot of guys in that room. Very interesting. Although worth mentioning with Peterson, just some fun stats. I mean, he had 4.2 yards per carry last year and 4.3 the year before. So he may be 35, but he hasn't shown signs of slowing down. So yeah, maybe he can help some of the young halfbacks learn how to play. Hopefully he doesn't help them with parenting advice, but that's neither here nor there. And we can just move on to the last little update we want to talk about before we get into the meat of this video, all of the game previews. Let's talk about Mohamed Sanu, because this is kind of a surprise to me.
It was to me too. The big thing is that, he was this big receiver that was supposed to be good for New England. He's a great route runner. He fits New England's model of the offense. It's why we spent a second-round pick on him. Not only that, every report out of his injury was that he looks good in training camp, looks good this offseason, and also that he's worked really hard with Cam Newton. So seeing him go was a little bit of surprise. I wonder if this is a Mohamed Sanu thing or if it's a N'Keal Harry thing, and they just feel that good about N'Keal Harry that they're willing to let Mohamed Sanu go. I'm not really sure on either side of it, but I mean, very clearly you could watch last season and see it wasn't up to par. So maybe they felt like he wasn't going to get any better this season. I thought maybe with a healthy season he'd bounce back this year, but clearly New England, I also wasn't in training camp, so they felt a lot better about the situation letting him go.
Yeah, quite the positive spin you put on that one of they're just so confident in N'Keal Harry. That's the move. I remember when I thought that the Bucs were so confident in Jameis Winston, and that's what I got rid of Mike Glennon. But yeah, we can. No, I'm with you. I think that this is. I'm just making jokes. I think that this is definitely a. I think it's just a sort of a head scratching situation. Maybe it's just an injury. Who knows? Kind of disappointment for the Patriots, but literally no one feels bad for them other than Patriots fans. So we can.
I think they got to bring in another receiver at this point. I feel like somebody else is coming. Because I get
Gunner Treadwell.
Oh God, what's that? Like his 8th team in 5 years? But I get that. Jacoby Myers looked really good in training camp. The guy, I think the biggest riser for training camp was I can't say his last name very well. Gunnar Olszewski,
Ben, the Noodle Man just put out Pat's like Gunner. Maybe that's part of it. Yeah, continue.
Yeah, but so he was the biggest, he was the hottest name out of training camp. Everybody loved what he did this year. And I think from everything I heard about Cardinals fans, Damiere Byrd was pretty underrated as a receiver last year. So maybe they feel like the depth of this position, letting that $6.5 million go makes sense for them because he did have a big cap. I think he had the biggest cap hit for receivers. So letting that go makes sense. But the Patriots also had cap space because of all the opt-outs. That's the part I didn't get. So I do feel like that it's a move for another move eventually.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have anything else to add. You want to just get into the week 1 previewing every game?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm ready to go.
Okay, this is exciting. So just how this is going to work is we created a game about this. So we're going to preview every game, and we're also going to give our picks, but not in your traditional way. So what's going to happen is that I'm going to go first, and I'm going to go first because I've decided I'm going to go first. And what I'm going to do is I am going to pick a game, and then Kyle has to pick who he thinks is going to be the winner of that game. If he gets it right, then nothing happens. If he gets it wrong, he gets a point. This is like golf. You don't want points. Points are bad. So Kyle, whoever ends up with the most points, and then we'll do some sort of way where we make it more valuable in the playoffs. But we're going to do this throughout the whole year. And so basically, he's going to pick a game. I'm going to pick a game for him. He's going to pick a team that he feels like he wants to win, or he thinks will win, and then we'll go from there. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds good. I hope we remember this through all 16 weeks.
Yes, I'll try to keep track of it. We'll see. We gave up for our worst take of the weeks about midway through doing that, but you know what? I think this one hopefully will go longer. So I'm just going to get started. I'm going to give you a game that I really don't feel confident whatsoever about who is going to win. I could see this going either way, and I know that you are very partial towards one of these two teams. So I will give you a chance to talk about your beloved Dak Prescott. I'm going to give you Cowboys, who are minus 2.5 point favorites at the Rams. Who do you got?
All right. Well, this is an interesting one. So I had this third on my list for third most difficult game to predict. I think this makes a lot of sense, though, because, the toughest part that I have going against Dallas in this is that La'el Collins is out. I feel like that's a big loss because he's missing the first 3 weeks of the season, along with Sean Lee. And the last thing you want to see is injury struggles right away. But I think the one thing that they have going for them, so a little a little tidbit that I learned for all of you gamblers out there, if you want to go through the trends that have gone through baseball season, is that home field advantage is winning at an abnormally low rate, which makes a lot of sense because there's no fans in the stands, which I think I saw only 2 games this week have fans in the stands or have plans for fans in the stands. But it's still a limited capacity at that point. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And then the other thing that you have to look at is that talent is winning at a normally high rate in terms of gambling odds. And I think talent is going to win out on this one. And I give the edge to the Rams defense for talent with guys like Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald. I do think that they're going to win this one. And they need wins right away because that division's so difficult. And I just think that they get it done here. And I'm going to go with the Rams here by probably 6 points.
Yeah, I think that's okay. Rams by 6. That's a good one. Yeah, and also I should just be clear. We're not doing it by the spread, so it's just picking someone to win straight up. The spread does not matter. I just have it there so you guys know. But yeah, this is one that I really could see going either way. I feel like these are 2 very evenly matched teams. I think this could be a potential Cam Akers breakout party to some degree. I think we could see that. And like you said, the Collins injury is definitely big. Again, I could legitimately see this one going either way. That's why I gave it to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big thing. And then, like I said, Collins is going to be out. And then I feel like this weirdly just comes down to it's as simple as strength against strength. It's the Cowboys offense against the Rams defense. And then I think the last thing too, along with, like I said, I think talent is going to play a huge part where home field doesn't play a huge part. And then the last thing I think is going to play a huge part too is continuity. I think a team like Rams who have been in this system for a number of years where the Cowboys are introducing a new coach, I think that's going to be difficult for week 1. And that's why I think guys like Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods get it done along with that defense. And I think the Rams win.
Yeah. Okay. So not too much to add there. I think we can just move on to your first pick now. Who do you got?
All right. So this one's pretty easy for me. I'm going to a game close to your heart. This is obviously the biggest game of the week. And I think that these are the two of the 3 best teams in the division, maybe 4 best teams in the conference, excuse me. I'm going to New Orleans, where the Saints are playing Tampa Bay. So Who do you got here? Saints and Bucks, your hometown team on the road.
Okay, well, this was number 2 on my board. So we're in sync here to some degree. Yeah, this is another one I don't feel confident about either way. I could see either things happening. I originally was saying Saints just because I've said the Saints before the season started. They were my pick for the division. Even though obviously I'm a Bucks fan, I'm very much hoping for that to not happen. I do think that the Leonard Fournette thing does change some things. I also am not sold on Alvin Kamara. I'm not sure how much he's come back from his injury yet. These are all real things. I think there's going to be some very interesting stuff. One of the most interesting things I'm looking forward to is we've seen great battles from Mike Evans and from Marshawn Lattimore in the past. Evans got him 2 years ago pretty badly, but then last year Lattimore got Evans pretty badly. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this year. And of course, the whole Tom Brady playing with Tampa Bay. This should be very interesting. I could see this going anyway. I could see either team blowing either team out. I could see either team winning in a close game. I'm going to give the edge to New Orleans. New Orleans, they're 4.5-point favorites. They're at home. I think this will be a close game. If you gave me the points, I would go Tampa Bay. But just straight up, I am going to go New Orleans, but I don't feel great about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is I think a lot of this, because, you mentioned the Evans-Lattimore matchup. I think the big thing is going to be these guys, the second and third guys for each of these teams at the receiver position and secondary. How is Janoris Jenkins going to hold up against Chris Godwin, who had 1,300 yards last year? And how are their nickel guys going to hold up against guys like Scotty Miller, who's had a great training camp from what I heard? And that's a position that Brady loves to use, is that slot guy along with his tight end. I think that's going to be a big thing for this game, is how do those players match up and how do they handle all the weapons Tampa Bay has, which I think is a big thing. But it's a big thing on the other side too, because you got Emmanuel Sanders, Traquan Smith, Jared Cook on the other side. It's going to be a great chess match from both of these teams. I'm excited to see it. I'm interested to see Tom Brady. I think he's going to have a big year. I think Tampa's going to have a big year. I picked them to win the division, while you picked them to finish second. but I don't think they necessarily need this game. Obviously, it's not like a must-win week one. I don't like the cliche too much. So I'll probably lean New Orleans just week one because of that continuity standpoint, especially early in the season. But I could still see Tampa Bay bouncing back and winning the division.
Yeah. I think the way Tampa Bay could win this is if the thing they have going for them is their front seven is obviously, I think, the best part. I think that's the best part of their team outside of their receivers. So you have that going for you. And New Orleans is the kind of team that doesn't like to push the ball down the field too much. Breeze does not throw the ball deep down the field very often anymore. So I think that's kind of the one thing that you're sort of forcing him to play a game he's not totally comfortable with. But I do still trust New Orleans to be able to pull it off. We'll move on to my second pick, third pick of this. I'm going to go the Monday Night Football game, but there's two of them, so I'm going to go with, I forget if it's the later one or the earlier one. The Titans Broncos will be the one I'm going with. Broncos are 1.5 point favorites. I think this could go either way. Who do you got? Titans Broncos.
Yeah, this is an interesting game for me. I had this one actually fourth. So once again, we're pretty close on all of these. I think that this will be a fun game to watch. I'm interested to see how Drew Lock does in week one. Like I said, we've both talked about how big of fans we are of Lock, and how big of fans we were last season. But I do think that the training wheels kind of need to come off. I think they need to play a little more aggressive with him. Ooh, man, who do I pick in this one? I think I'm going to go with the Broncos in this one. I'm going to give them the week one win, even with these additions for Tennessee, which, I picked Tennessee to finish second in the division because I had questions about them regressing, especially on the defensive side without Casey. They obviously add Clowney, which helps a lot, but I don't know if he's, having him, start week one after practicing essentially a week, I think is going to be tough. And I just love this Denver defense. I think Vic Fangio is going to have that defense ready, and I think that they can match up with Tennessee really well. I'm going to go with the Broncos.
Yeah, I think this is a tough one. That's why I gave it to you. I had Titans, so I'm glad that you went Denver here, but I really do feel like it could go either way. I love both these teams. I think they're both very interesting. I'm much higher on Tennessee than you are. I think that Denver is interesting. I think that we could sort of see them get their sea legs a little bit early on in this with a lot of young players on the offensive side of the ball. Tennessee has, with the exception of Clowney, pretty much they're pretty much the same team. They also lost Logan Ryan, but I do think that this is a pretty solid team, and I like their offense. I think I'm higher on Tannehill than you. And I think that another interesting thing, we talked about future MVP Isaiah Wilson in a previous podcast. I think that the question will be, how does he fare against, guys like Von Miller and Bradley Chubb? They lost Jack Conklin. How will they survive with a good pass rush against them?
Yeah, I think that's throwing a kid into the fire, literally. That's one of the best pass rushing duos in the NFL. That's the big thing for me. I just don't see a weakness on this Broncos defense right now. I think that they're going to be able to I think they're going to have their way a little bit with Tennessee on offense in this, or defensively compared to Tennessee's offense. I think that's going to be where the difference lies. And I'm excited to see this backfield for Denver as well. They got 3 guys back there that they can all throw who I think are really effective running backs. I think this will be a close. This will be a hard-nosed defensive game. I think that's what both of these coaches want to. I could see this ending in a, 13-10 sort of finish. But I think if you love defense, definitely tune into this game. It's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, I also do kind of worry about the Broncos like to play zone. Play action can kill zone. There's something, and obviously Tennessee loves to run play action. So there is that inherent schematic problem. But I also trust Fangio with all the time in the world to prepare stuff. So I'm not really too concerned about that. Let's just move on to number 4 now. So this is your second pick. Who are you going to give to me?
All right, so this is the game I had number 2 on my list, and I'm giving it to you for my second pick. This is another big matchup, probably the second biggest game of the week. And I don't think not all of my tough picks are good games or the best teams, but this one kind of just fits. I'm going Minnesota and Green Bay here.
Yes, very good pick. This one was 4th on my list, but I actually think I'm a little bit. I feel pretty confident about my pick. I'm going to go Green Bay here. I do feel confident about Green Bay. One thing that I made a video about, I just uploaded it yesterday, talking about how, Matt LaFleur and the Packers did such a good job of taking Danielle Hunter out of the game on those first two games they played last year. And, the one way Minnesota was able to get pressure was by blitzing. They blitz to the side Hunter is on. They get a lot more pressure that way. But I think the concern is obviously just that you can't do that consistently throughout the course of a game, or, because you probably want to double Devontae Adams. And with Devontae Adams out there, like if you're singling him, there's not too much in the secondary. He can then have a lot of success. So I just think this is a matchup thing. I think that Green Bay does such a good job. I think that so far we've seen Matt LaFleur outcoach your guy Zimmer a couple of times, and I think that until Minnesota proves they can come back, I got to go Green Bay here.
Yeah, so there's a couple sides with this. Obviously you're looking at, once again, down to the corners and receivers a little bit for me, but you're looking at those inexperienced Viking cornerbacks against a guy like Devontae Adams. Do they throw a few guys at him to try and remove him from the equation, and then try and force Rodgers' hands into going to guys like Allen Lazard that he probably doesn't want to as much? Is there a way for them to do that, or make him throw downfield on these safeties and try and take advantage in that regard? And then on the other side, the Packers defense stepped up a lot last year. And then obviously the Vikings lose Stephon Diggs, so that's a huge advantage to the secondary of the Packers. How is Minnesota going to be able to generate big plays to keep this defense honest has been my big thing the whole year, because Stephon Diggs was such a key part of that. How do they make that happen? But on the other side, you look at Packers defense, who I believe their rush defense was 23rd in the country, or 23rd in the NFL last year. Got my mind on college football for some reason.
Okay.
So 23rd in the NFL last season in rush defense. Obviously, they bring in a guy like Christian Kirksey, who's much better in that regard than Blake Martinez, if Christian Kirksey's healthy. So can Minnesota, dominate this game by just pretty much pounding Dalvin Cook, which they did all of last season, and are they going to do this season? Which is Cook playing this week? I can't remember.
I believe so, but I could be wrong. Chat, let us know. Is Cook playing?
I think he is. There is that stuff about the holdout. That's why I was curious. So I think he is playing, though. So I think that's going to be a big thing. Can they pound the rock and, keep Rodgers off the field and keep that Packers offense off the field? But I would probably lean Green Bay also, just because, like you said, they were 2-0 against the Vikings last year. I think that's a big thing. It could be interesting to see, but I'll probably lean the Packers week 1.
Yeah, and I don't trust Minnesota's corners either. I think that even with Green Bay's sort of lack of depth in the wide receiver position, I just don't trust their corners. So that's where I stand. I still think Minnesota's a very good team. I think they're a playoff team. I just think Green Bay's a level better, and they match up very well. For my next pick, again, I know we got some Lions fans in the chat. So let's go with the Lions game. Let's go Bears at Lions. This is a pick 'em, so you get no points even if we were doing it against the spread. I think this is an interesting. I think this is an interesting one. Who do you have winning this game?
Yeah, I was going back and forth on this one. I'm going to pick Detroit in this one. I like that offense. Okay. I like a lot of the pieces they have. I think that they get an early win in this. Stafford, up until he got hurt last year, was, I think, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Up until he got hurt, he looked fantastic last year, and now he's got all these pieces back. He's got a great running back room behind him, especially when Kerryon Johnson's on the field. That's the big thing. I think that the Lions offense gets this done. I think they find a way to get some points on this Bears defense. I'm going with the Lions here.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Luke G put a comment. I meant to get it up, but I missed it. He talked about how Trubisky is 3-0 against the Lions. It's actually one of the funny statistics is that Trubisky kills the Lions. It's one of the most bizarre, that's very bizarre. And on top of this, you also have Patricia, who is 0-2 in opening weeks. So those are definitely not good statistics. I would have gone Bears here. So again, this is now 2 out of the 3 picks you had. I picked the opposite. I don't know. I just feel like, this is the kind of thing where we've seen that again. I don't want to get too much on the Patricia hate train. I've talked enough about that. I just think that Chicago is the better team. I think they have a better defense, and I think they have a better coach, and I think they're going to pull this game out.
Yeah, that's the big one. I mean, the other thing too is I think David Montgomery is questionable for this one. So if he doesn't play, I think that's tough. I do think it's going to be tough to manufacture some points. I don't know. I'm just kind of bought in that Detroit's offense with Stafford healthy is going to make some plays. So I'm going to go with them. I don't see either of these teams making the playoffs, unfortunately, this year. But I do see a point where Detroit can seal this game because of that offense ready to go.
Yeah, I noticed in the chat, people are saying Lions. People are disagreeing with me and agreeing with you. So you can have that. But all that matters is what happens on Sunday. So now it is your pick. You get to pick a game. Who do you got?
All right, so I'm going to the other end of the spectrum here. I'm going Bengals Chargers.
Okay.
I want to see what you think about this team.
This is a tough one. This one was I was close on this one. I do think that we talked about the Chargers' good defense, and then we talked about, but then shortly after Derwin James got hurt, so that definitely affects their good defense. They seem like they're going to start Tyrod Taylor. I think that this is a tough one. To me, I just think that typically on a rookie's first game, they don't play well. That's not always. I was in the stands when Marcus Mariota lit up Tampa Bay's secondary in his first game. Okay, so I know it doesn't always happen, but I just think that with the quarterback position, you're going to get, Taylor's not a star, but he's fine, and I trust him more than I trust anybody, even one of the best, talents who I've been super high on coming out of the draft. It's hard to come in on your first game and really have a ton of success. I just, especially against a defense that I still do think is pretty good, even without James, I am going to go with the Chargers. But I don't think this is an easy one. Chargers are -3. That feels about right to me. I wouldn't bet this game if I'm a betting man, which I am.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, I obviously picked the Chargers to, do pretty well this year. I thought the defense could be one of the best. I felt like, I think I said 2018 Bears vibes with them, but I kind of have cooled off that now that James is out again, which is unfortunate. It's become one of the most unfortunate stories that he can't get on the field enough because obviously he's a fantastic talent. I mean, I'll go Chargers here because, and it's not even, I don't think Burrow's going to play bad.
It's just hard.
It's just it is hard. And you're also looking at Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram against this Bengals offensive line, which is bad. So,
yeah.
I think that's going to be a big thing. I think Bengals have a lot of weapons on offense to throw to. But I just think that it's just as simple as that. Bosa and Ingram against this offensive line is going to be a problem. So I'll go with the Chargers in this one. Yeah, I just think that's kind of how it is. I think it'll be closer than people think.
Yeah, I think so too. I would not be shocked if Cincinnati won, but I do think that it would require a pretty good game from Joe Mixon. But the thing about Joe Mixon is he has a lot of pretty good games. So with that, we will move on to the next game now. I am going to go with two teams that are your division rivals, Jets at the Bills. Bills are 5.5-point favorites in this one. Who do you got? I think I know who. But I feel like this is still the best. We're sort of gotten past some of the close games and going to the ones where there is favorites. But who do you got?
Yeah, I had this a lot further down the list than you did. I'm going with the Bills here, especially with CJ Mosley out. I just don't see how this Jets defense plays as well as it did at some points last season. And I just think that the Bills are too good. They have a potential to have Sam Darnold seeing some ghosts here early in week one. That's just how good this secondary is with obviously guys like Micah Hyde, Tre'Davious White. I don't see any situation where the Bills lose here. Unless Josh Allen's throwing like 5 interceptions, I just don't see it.
Yeah. I agree. I think that the way that the Jets do win is, we've kind of talked about when we made our preview of this division, sort of the subtle upgrades the Jets have made in their offensive line. I think we kind of felt like they were buying overpriced Band-Aids, but you know what? That can still work at times. And if their offensive line can hold its own against a pretty good D-line, this is a good test for them. But if they could potentially hold their own, this could potentially be a different game. I think they do have a little bit, I like Sam Darnold basically, and I like Le'Veon Bell. I still don't think he's washed up. And they have their defense has played well. They've schemed themselves well, and obviously Josh Allen is the kind of guy who is capable of making mistakes, I still think that Buffalo is going to win. They're definitely the favorites here, but there is a chance that the Jets could steal it. They played each other week 1 last year, and it came down to a fourth quarter comeback it was a blown 16-point lead that allowed Buffalo to win. I think Buffalo's the favorites, but that's what I got. And with that, we can move on to your next pick.
Yeah, one thing about that too, when I was grading these, I kind of added a factor of divisional games because those just tend to get weird. These teams see each other a lot, so it gets a little bit weird sometimes. But yeah, I'm still leaning Bills on that one. I'm going to another divisional game though, which I think could get a little weird. A lot of Cardinals fans didn't like us after that NFC West preview. They felt like they were disrespected, right, especially when it came to playoff predictions, and we had them on the outside. So they're going to get a big test here week 1. I'm going San Fran, Arizona to you.
Yes, and I do have to say right off the bat, the line is the 49ers are 7.5-point favorites. I think this is insane. I think that this should not be a 7.5. If you're a betting man, bet the Cardinals. They're going to be plus 7.5. I think that this is a very interesting game. I think that with both teams healthy, I do have the 49ers. Both teams are not healthy. The 49ers have a ton of injuries in their receiving core. What they can do is just run the ball a lot, which, they're pretty good at. And the Cardinals are not very good at protecting the run. So you think that would be good. But the past 2 times these two teams have played, when the Cardinals were significantly worse than they are now, these were still very close games. And those two 49ers teams were much better than they are now because, of injuries. So, I don't know. Maybe this is going to be. Maybe the chat's going to go crazy here. I'm going to go Arizona here. I think Arizona wins this football game. Ooh. I think that they have the injuries. I don't love. I think that with the Cardinals sort of air raid style. It's not totally air raid, but kind of air raid style, where they kind of keep the ball away from the middle of the field. On defense, it neutralizes that great 49ers defensive line. I think they're going to have a much better advantage on offense. And I think, we've seen Jimmy Garoppolo's had to play well against Arizona to get those wins. He's proven he's capable of doing that, but now he doesn't have the wide receiving core that he once did. So even though I have the 49ers winning the division and I had the Cardinals finishing last in the division, I do have, as I've said, it's only because that division is really tough. And I do have Arizona winning this game.
Yeah, so there's a couple variables here. One is the Super Bowl loss hangover, which is something why when we talked about it during the playoff predictions, I had San Francisco potentially being the last wildcard team getting in. We've just seen time and time again, some of these teams that lose Super Bowl games come out slow to start the season. I think that's going to be a big thing to start this one. The Cardinals, they have Devondre Campbell, Devin Kennard, and Isaiah Simmons trying to improve that run defense. Is it going to be enough to improve that run defense in week 1? For a 49ers team that is very good at running the football? I could see like a 150-yard game out of Raheem Mostert, or I could see, like I said, especially the NFC West, I feel like all these games just kind of go crazy when they play each other, and it just gets really weird. But I'll probably still lean San Francisco. It sounds like there's a chance Deebo Samuel might play, which is kind of crazy. He's coming back. So if he's back, I'm going to go San Francisco here.
Yeah. Also, Lindsay in the chat just wrote DeAndre Hopkins ... Yeah, I probably should have mentioned him too. They added the best receiver in the league. That's another big thing.
Richard Sherman ... No.
Yeah, exactly. So I will go with my next pick now. We talked about divisional games. I am going with a divisional game. I am going to go with a team that these two teams split their season series last year, and I think both teams got better, but specifically one of them. I am going to go Cleveland at Baltimore here. Baltimore was -9, which again, bet Cleveland. I think that's an easy bet right there. I mean, watch, I don't know, because I do feel like I can easily see Baltimore just trouncing Cleveland and winning like 45-10. Like you can see something like that happening because they are such a talented team. But I just feel Cleveland is good. They are, there is this divisional matchup, although new head coach, so that does change some things. But I think this is a tough one. Who do you got for this one?
By the way, if anyone's curious, you can also find this at Baltimore -10, which definitely bet Cleveland at that point. The fact that that's a double digit, I've been the conductor of the the Browns hype train this offseason. I'm a lot higher on them this offseason than I was last offseason because they improved that offensive line greatly. I think that this team's going to be very good. I think this is a tough matchup for week one, though. I think, Baltimore obviously was the best team in football up until the Earl Thomas situation, had probably the best offseason too. They get guys like Patrick Queen, they get guys like Calais Campbell, who I think are going to come in and compete right away. I think that this Browns team is going to be good, but I think they fall short in this one. I'm going Ravens 27-24. I think they barely squeak this one out. I think it could be a close one. Obviously, the big thing for the Browns, they have Stefanski, who I think is going to be a very good coach, and it makes a lot of sense. Can he use Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb and essentially just keep Lamar off the field? I think that's going to be the game plan, is just pound the rock, 8-9 minute drives, and Lamar's going to have short field, or Lamar's not going to have a lot of time. He's going to have to move quick to try and keep up with this game because the Browns are just taking up so much time of possession. That's how they win, but I think that Lamar's just too good at the end. I think the Ravens win this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Ravens do too. Like, I think this is, again, we're kind of getting to the point where I feel like anything can happen, but I just feel like there's a chance that Cleveland could upset them, and if there is, it would be nice to have that happen against you and not against me. So who do you have for your next pick?
So I'm going a little bit of a wild card here. I think that this could be a very interesting game. On the surface, I think one team makes a lot of sense for a victory, but I do think that the other team has the potential to kind of play spoiler in this one. I think this could be a real upset potential game. I'm going the Giants and the Steelers.
Okay, Giants and the Steelers. This was my third to last pick on here. I think this is an easy Pittsburgh Steelers win. I don't think that. Again, I like the Giants. I like some of what they've done, but I like how they've improved their secondary specifically. So I do think that helps. But I just feel like the Steelers defense is too good. And I just don't know if I don't know how the Giants are really going to. I don't think they'll be able to run the ball consistently, and I don't think they'll be able to pass the ball consistently. And I could see this easily being a tough one for the Giants offense. Again, I like a lot of the players they have on there. I love the Andrew Thomas addition. I'm a pretty big Daniel Jones fan. I like Daniel Jones. And I think their receiving core is underrated, but I just think the Steelers defense is too good. And, with Roethlisberger back, I trust them to be able to score enough points on offense that I just feel like Pittsburgh is clear favorites. And I think that the -3 isn't enough for Pittsburgh, even though they're on the road.
Yeah. So, I'm taking this kind of I did have Baltimore and Cleveland right above this as the toughest pick, but I think this is the same situation that you had where, if any of these teams remaining that we have picking games are likely to get an upset, it was the Browns. If any of these teams I think are likely to get an upset that are left, as far as the underdogs, I'm taking the Giants here because I think that there's a few variables that could, not go in Pittsburgh's favor. What if Ben Roethlisberger all of a sudden looks very old coming off of that injury and he looks very sloppy week one? And I think of all the quarterbacks remaining on this list for underdogs, I think Daniel Jones we haven't talked about Houston obviously, but Daniel Jones is one guy who I think could light up a team on any given week. He obviously has that talent, but there's also potential he throws a bunch of interceptions and turns the ball over a ton. I would still go Pittsburgh here, but I do think that the Giants have the potential to play spoiler, especially if Ben Roethlisberger isn't looking up to his standard week one.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'll go to my next pick now, unless you have anything else you want to add. I am going to go with your heroes, your favorite team, your hometown team. The New England Patriots will host the Miami Dolphins, -5.5 points. Dolphins have Lynn Bowden now, so tough decision. Who do you got?
Yeah, I got New England in this one. I just, Devontae Parker is not beating Stephon Gilmore twice in a row. I feel like Stephon Gilmore is going to take this one a little personally. And so I feel like this is New England in a landslide. I'm curious how the offense manufactures some points here. I'm interested to see the Cam Newton team. I think it's going to be very good in the end, but I think getting to that point is going to be interesting. Obviously, it's a long season, and I don't think that they're going to challenge this. The most expensive cornerback duo in the NFL in the Miami Dolphins. I don't think they're going to challenge them a whole lot. I think this is going to be the Damian Harris breakout performance week I'm ready for is week one. Damian Harris makes it happen, and I'm going New England 24-10. I think that they get it done this week.
Okay. Yes. I do have to say, as much as I love to give you a hard time about Stephon Gilmore Sr., aka Devontae Parker, I think that I do think that Gilmore is going to have something to prove in this game. I think that he is not going to let the mistake that happened in the past ever happen to him again. But I also do want to be clear. There were moments in that game when Gilmore did everything right and Parker just beat him. Like, Parker is really good. And one of the things that makes Gilmore so great is that he's so good at those contested. He's such good ball skills. When he's around the ball, he can make a play on it. But Parker is so good at making those catches, which is what makes it such a fun battle. You have to think that the New England defense is going to shut down the Miami Dolphins offense. But if they can, Fitzpatrick their way and get some points, with Fitzmagic on the field, anything can happen. So I'm happy that you have that game and not me. Who is going to be your next pick?
All right, where am I going next? All right, so I'm going with another divisional matchup. I do see one team as a clear favorite, especially after the selling spree that just took place, but I'm going to go Jaguars and Colts.
Okay, this was last on my list. This was the last one. I have the Colts. I think this is a no doubter. I think this was the easiest pick I had to make. I just think the Colts are, they're clearly a better team. I don't think anyone's going to argue that. And I think that the Jaguars are just, I don't know what they're doing. Like, I made a video talking about the Ronnie Harrison trade. Like, they're trading away young players for late round draft picks that have potential. Like, I don't know what they're doing. I think this is a really bad team. Listen, I could be wrong. I really like Minshew. I just don't see a scenario where Jacksonville finds a way to win this football game. I just don't think they have the talent to do so. Anything can happen on any given Sunday. And I never like to be the guy who doesn't give a team a chance, but this is about as close as I'm getting. So I'm surprised to see you be so high on the Jaguars that it's only the fifth most obvious game of the week.
So I'll give you the roadmap here to a victory, okay? So Phillip Rivers, who is one of the league leaders in interceptions last season, obviously he had a very bad year to the point where the legend for the San Diego / Los Angeles Chargers, they felt like they had to let him go. So he comes into this game all high and mighty, ready to go, ready to new team, new situation, and his turnover problems come with him. He's turning the ball over a ton in this game. He's frustrated, and the Gardner Minshew DJ Shark connection is manufacturing some points here for Jacksonville to get the W. I'm going close win. I'm still picking the Colts. But I think that's the roadmap, obviously, to where Jacksonville wins this game. They get a few turnovers. Minshew makes some plays. Obviously, he can move around a lot in the pocket with his legs. He finds DJ Chark a few times, and then that's where Jacksonville gets the win.
Okay. Well, you painted a picture, so I'll give you credit for that. I think fair enough. What about this? If you go Colts -7, are you betting for the Colts or against the Colts?
I'm still betting for the Colts. I just think we're at the end of this schedule.
Well, let's just go with. I think this is one that, again, at this point, we are kind of just sort of picking just random games at this point to some degree, just basically upset potentials. Let's go with a game that people are talking about as could be a good game. I do not think this is going to be a good game. It will be the first game, though. Houston at Kansas City, the defending champs, taking on a team that they came back from a 24-point deficit. I think, why do you have Kansas City as this one?
Because defending champs since 2004 are 12-3 in opening games. And of course, that's kind of a corny statistic because clearly defending champs are usually pretty good football teams. So obviously they should win a lot of those games, but I do think it plays a big part. That ring ceremony is a big thing. This is also limited attendance. As far as I know, this is going to be one of the two games that's going to have limited capacity in the stadium. I believe the Chiefs are one of the teams that named fans in the stands at about 22%. Now, 22% of fans in the stands probably won't play a huge part of home field advantage, but it might play a little bit of a part, especially as it's ceremony celebrating with their fans. I do think that could be a big thing. I just think that the biggest thing outside of Justin Reed, Houston's secondary stinks, and that's not where you want to be bad at in football when Patrick Mahomes is on the other side of the field. I just don't think Houston's defense is going to be very good this next season. Is it crazy to think that?
No, I think it'd be crazy to think the opposite. I mean, we talked about how like that, especially that third corner position, all you have to do is put three receivers out there, and I just think that you're in real trouble. And unfortunately, Kansas City, I don't think they're eons better of a team than Houston, but this matchup is not a good matchup. And a whole 24-point blown lead, I don't care what people say. The Texans were never winning that game. I don't blame Bill O'Brien for a couple of decisions he made. That team was just not talented enough to stop Kansas City in any way. Kansas City just has too much firepower on offense. They can just throw the ball down the field too much. And I mean, Houston just isn't talented enough in their secondary to make up for it. They don't have the depth, and I think this is going to end up being a blowout once again.
Yeah. So you heard it here first from Jackson Kruger. If you're looking for a cheap daily fantasy option, McCole Harmon could be your guy going against that third corner for Houston.
I thought you were going to say Patrick Mahomes.
Well, that's it.
quick little sleeper there, Patrick Mahomes. Need to pick him up. All right. We'll go to your second to last pick now. There's only 3 games left. It's the Raiders-Panthers. I know Raiders fans anxiously awaiting that one. Seahawks, Falcons, and Eagles football team. Who do you have as the final 3?
I have all, these are my 3 walks of the week, so we do agree on this. It seems like all the way through. I guess, you can't say it's a sure thing against Matt Ryan. So I guess I'll go Falcons, Seahawks, although I do think this is a huge mismatch.
Yeah, now that I realize it's this low, I probably should have picked it earlier because, Seattle's only a -1. Like these teams are close. I do feel like Seattle, again, this is, I think, a clear bet on Seattle here. I really like Seattle as a football team. I think Atlanta's gotten somehow a bit overhyped, even though I think that, typically they're the kind of team that gets slept on. I think people just sort of expect them to still be good because they've been good in the past. I think this is going to be Dan Quinn's last season. Meanwhile, Seattle just has so much to play for, trying to make a playoff spot. And again, you could argue Matt Ryan. You can never count Matt Ryan out, but you definitely can't count Russell Wilson out. And I think the best case scenario Atlanta would have is try to keep it close and hope it comes down to the end. But of course, with Russell Wilson, he's great at winning close games. I just think that there's, and again, that's not really schematic wise. That's more just generalities. It'll be interesting to see how Jamal Adams does. But with Seattle's great secondary, that's going to limit a lot of what Atlanta can do through the passing game. And so I think that this is a pretty obvious Seattle. But you're right, Atlanta does have a chance to upset them. This is a good pick here with your second to last one.
Yeah, I just don't get this system. I don't get this team. Like, I hate how they built this Falcons team. I guess I'll just put it at that. Matt Ryan's been sacked 90 times the last 2 seasons, and they're just hoping that the guys come back healthy and it's going to be fine. I'm not really convinced that that's going to be the solution. The strength of Falcons is obviously Ryan and that receiving core. Well, I think Seattle's secondary is just a lot better. Quentin Dunbar is actually going to play this one, it sounds like. Obviously, after that crazy offseason and his stuff, he's going to play. I think that's a huge advantage for Seattle. Like I said, home field advantage obviously matters less and less going into the season. And I think talent wins out more and more. And I just see Seattle as more talented. And I just see them as more talented. It's that simple. I don't like Atlanta's defense whatsoever. They basically are banking on 2 stars being really good, which is Deion Jones and, of course, Keanu Neal. And Keanu Neal hardly ever makes the whole season. So I just don't see it. I don't see the Atlanta team being very good. I do think that this is Dan Quinn's last season. I see them on the way out.
Yeah, I agree. So for my next pick, I am going to go with the one the commenters have been asking for the entire show. Las Vegas playing their first game at Carolina. They are 3-point favorites. Again, I feel like that's not enough. I think this is, I saw the White Stallion sent in Raiders by 40, and then he or she responded with, excuse my typo, 60. So the Raiders fans feel very confident about this one. I am with them. I think that the Raiders are going to win. I'm assuming you're going to say the same. This is your pick.
Yeah, so I had these 2 games were my 2 easiest picks, and this was my easiest pick of the week. I'm going here. I'm going with the Raiders. Just breaking it down, the Raiders' biggest question for me is still the secondary. but I'm not overly concerned with Teddy Mittens throwing the ball downfield on them. I think the Panthers are, it's a very young coaching staff with a lot of inexperience. It's a very young defense with a lot of inexperience outside of Trey Boston. I think they're content with a 4-12 season. I'm content with their 5-11 season. I think that the Raiders are a much better team in this one, and they're going to get the win. And I think this is a great situation for Carr and this offense to start the season with all these new weapons against a team that I just don't think is going to be very good and is also a very young defense. So I'm going to go with the Raiders I think this is going to be a 2-touchdown game. I think that they're going to win this one pretty handily. I think that I just don't think the Panthers are going to be that good. I mean, I don't think that they're going full on Jacksonville, whatever they're doing, tank. But I think that this is going to be a team that is a top 5 pick next year. I think the Raiders are better in this one.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, I think the Raiders are going to win too. I think that this is going to be an interesting game, though. Like, I think the Raiders are going to win. I wouldn't be surprised if they win by double digits. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of stuff that could be fun to watch here. I think that I'm looking forward to seeing how some of these young defensive linemen on the Carolina Panthers face against a really good offensive line with that Las Vegas has. I'm looking forward to seeing how these receivers that the Raiders have drafted fare against some of these, I think, not very good secondary players with Carolina. So I think, especially when the Raiders are on offense, it should be very interesting. And the Raiders defense is a whole new team. I mean, they have completely new guys. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do against. I think that the Panthers offense isn't atrocious. It's not great, but it's not atrocious. They have some talent, and it'll be interesting to see what the Raiders do. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Raiders trounce them, although part of me does kind of wonder if they could get a little bit stunned here, just in the sense that I think back to last year when we all thought the Lions were going to blow out the Cardinals, and the Cardinals ended up tying the Lions week 1. This might end up actually being closer than I think a lot of us realize. I'm not saying it will be. I'm just saying I could see that happening, but smart money is on the Raiders, even with the 3 points. I think this is a no-brainer for me. And yeah, unless you have anything else to add, you can get to the final.
Well, there's a couple things I have with that. I think that the Raiders defensive line has a pretty massive advantage in this one. I think that's where they're going to cause some problems for that Panthers offense. And the other thing, I said earlier, I kind of hate the cliche of must win, but I think Gruden's going to look at this game that they really need to get this win, especially for a team with playoff hopes, because I talked about it a lot on that AFC West preview. After this, they got New Orleans, New England, Buffalo, Kansas City, bye week, Tampa Bay, Cleveland. And the biggest question we had with the Raiders last season that was so many issues is that they beat a couple of pretty good teams, but they also dropped a couple of games against really bad teams. I think they come out with this one with a statement. I don't think it's close. Like I said, I think it's at least a 2-touchdown win. Yeah.
You know what? That's a good point. I have 2 teams right now that I'm just thinking of, 2 teams that they have to win this, must win week 1. One of those they'll give to the Raiders. I think that's good. The other one I'm going to give to, this might seem odd, I'm going to give it to the Cardinals, because I think if the Cardinals can't beat the 49ers now, I don't know how again, I'm using must win, not literally, but kind of but I think that the Cardinals, a big game as well. It's hard to imagine the Cardinals lose, if they lose this one, if they can beat the 49ers when they're more healthy.
Yeah, I just think that's going to be a big thing. I think that they need to get this one. And I just think that the talent advantage says Raiders in this one. So,
yes. Okay. Also, just a quick update. White Stallion has now upgraded it. It's now 88-point win. So, okay. Thanks for keeping us updated.
I'll take that bet. You can have Raiders 88. And okay. I'll take the Panthers plus 88. We'll talk in the comment.
Yes. All right. You guys can work that out. So now we have the final pick. Obviously, we know which one it is. There's only one left. You're giving me the Eagles taking on the football team here. Eagles are 5.5-point favorites. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of an obvious one. I'm going to go Philadelphia. I think that's not really a surprise. But let's talk about what could be interesting about this game. I think the number one thing has to just be Chase Young, who just is, electric. And I'm really looking forward to seeing him play in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, the footballs are looking at it that way pretty much, that can this defensive line just wreak some havoc on the Eagles? But, the offensive line is a situation where the Eagles aren't exactly worried at all. So I do think that this game's the biggest talent disparity. I had it just above the Raiders Panthers because it's a divisional matchup. And like I said, those can tend to get weird, but I just don't see it happening. I think that Carson Wentz has a big game. I think the DCs are figuring a lot of things out this year because they're not really sure what their team has. Ron Rivera obviously is a good coach, and I think he's a good adult in the room. Maybe Terry McLaurin can get a big play here and there, but I just don't see it happening, especially with guys like Darius Slay now in Philadelphia. They upgraded every position that they needed to. I think that this is a big talent disparity. I think that the Eagles are much better, obviously.
Also, another comment from White Stein. White Stein doing some great work here. He said, "I'm excited to see a more lean second-year Haskins." I think that's interesting. Now, some people don't notice about you. You are a diehard Dwayne Haskins fan. You have Dwayne Haskins' face tattooed on your back. You could not be bigger of a fan. Are you excited to see what he can do? Maybe with a full season and actually given a real opportunity here. Whereas, whether you're a fan of him or not, I think we can all agree, terrible situation last year. Now a better situation. Do you think he can try to come through?
I guess we'll see, listen, we did our quarterback rankings and I had him 31 and I had him above Jarrett Stidham because this was before Cam Newton was signed.
Yeah, 32, right?
Did I? Actually, I think I did, actually.
Yeah.
Because I like Stidham just being in the Patriots offense. Mm-hmm. Talent-wise, he's probably 31, but I had Patriots offense giving Stidham a slight advantage. I think I'm not a huge fan of Haskins. I want to see it a little more. I think it's a very telling, you talk about that Ohio State system. That Urban Meyer offense hasn't translated to a lot of NFL success. And then Justin Fields came in last year to virtually the same offense and was the best quarterback Ohio State or Florida's ever had, essentially, in terms of throwing the football. So I think that's very telling. We'll see what happens with Haskins if he can get a little better. I'm willing to write off his rookie season, especially at the end of the year. The team just had too much going on that it just wasn't very good. Maybe with a little bit of a better situation, a coach in Ron Rivera who's going to believe in him, they can turn some things around. I just don't see it with him, honestly, though.
Yeah, we'll see. Again, I'm willing to give him a second chance here. But yep, so those are all of the games. We're going to talk a little bit about the NBA and NHL playoffs for a bit. So if you're just football only, you can check out now, although just before you go, just want to let you guys know next week we will be recording. It'll be midnight Eastern. We're going to be going live again. The live show, I think this was a success, a very fun live show. I had a good time. I appreciate all the comments down below. I know some people said that I see someone in the comments saying they've missed what the one they wanted to see. If you missed it, the show will still be up there. I'll try to get the timestamps up as soon as possible afterwards. So definitely just check down there. And yeah, next week at midnight. So it'll be right after the Sunday night game, basically. We're going to go live. So be on the lookout for that. Definitely make sure that you come on, hang out. Very fun stuff. And with that, we can just get back into the last little bit we want to talk about here. Let's talk some NBA first. Craziness going on. The most important thing, your Houston Rockets overlords clearly are on their way to win an NBA Finals, just like I keep telling you.
Well, so the weird thing is that, it turned out that basically it took Billy Donovan, it was very clear to me after game 2 that they had to adjust. It took Billy Donovan about 3 or 4 games to essentially say that Adams has to be about 15, 20 minutes of useful basketball, and then he has to be out of there before he's taken advantage of out there. And I think that the Lakers are kind of playing the long game in this one, and I think it's going to be sort of the same thing. I think that sooner or later they're just going to have to figure out that these JaVale and Dwight minutes can't happen. They can't play these guys that long. The thing is, too, is that they still have the height advantage with LeBron and AD on the court, even if JaVale and Dwight aren't out there. So it's not like you're losing anything with putting JaVale and Dwight on the bench because they're just okay basketball players anyway. The one thing, I think the biggest thing that's hurting the Lakers has obviously been losing Avery Bradley because that's someone that they could put out there and, is productive because they're just they clearly don't trust Deion Waiters and J.R. Smith, which makes a lot of sense because it's J.R. Smith and Deion Waiters. Mm-hmm. They kind of need one of those guys to step up and make some plays, even if it's just hitting some corner threes and playing some solid defense. They need one of those guys to do it because they can't play JaVale and Dwight that much.
Yeah, no, I agree. The Rockets will win the NBA championship. We're on the same page. I just no, but here's my thing about the Lakers. Like, they can't keep doing this. They can't keep just hoping things are going to get better. They can't keep just saying, okay, well, we struggled in game one. We'll keep moving back. Teams are getting better and better, and eventually this is going to come back to bite them. I'm not counting Houston out of the series. I'm joking around a little bit, but I think Houston does have a legitimate chance. And the reality is, Houston has proven time and time again they're capable of beating the best teams in the league. They're capable of losing to the best teams in the league. When they're on, they're on, and when they're off, they're off. And now with the Lakers not playing their best game one, all Houston has to do is, 3 out of the 6 bring their A game, and they have a legitimate chance to win this series. And also Anthony Davis, I saw that PJ Tucker was the primary defender on Anthony Davis, and he gave up, I believe it was 3 shots. None of them went in. I mean, that just can't happen. I mean, Anthony, I think that they're losing the post game. James Harden, he's an underrated post defender, in my opinion. He's a really good post defender. And I think that I almost wonder if this game 7 was the perfect thing to happen to the Rockets. Again, I'm totally looking through it with rose-colored glasses because I like Houston, but I'm not like a Houston fan. If you're new, I just like James Harden and Russell Westbrook. But I just feel like Harden had maybe his worst game ever. It was this or the game 6 against San Antonio. I mean, this was a Harden haters' dream scenario. He was looking garbage throughout most of the game, and then he was able to come up with the game sealing play and kind of put it all to bed. And I think this could be a really good thing for him to kind of get that sort of monkey off his back, where he finally played terrible in a game that his team still won in a big game. Maybe this could be some confidence, and he's having a good playoffs with the exception of the most important game, which he played terrible.
Well, and I also think game 6 that the reason why they lost it is because he wouldn't go and get the ball, but that's a different point. I do think that's the big thing with Houston. Can these two guys who are notorious for not just losing, but not showing up in big playoff games, show up when it matters the most? I think that's unfortunately, them's the rules. It was the same thing with LeBron earlier in his career until he won a title. Until these guys, the last big game Russell Westbrook really played in, he blew it against Golden State when he was when him and Durant were still on OKC. Harden has been notorious for not showing up in big games. The one big game that Houston won in a playoff game, he was on the bench and they made that absurd comeback against the Clippers. I think that was 6 or 7 years ago now, and he wasn't even in the game for the big part of the comeback. I do think that LA bounces back this game. I think that I think LeBron. I'm just going to lean LeBron and Anthony Davis over Russell Westbrook and James Harden. I think that the one problem that you have, of course, which is the same thing I said about the Lakers in the last round, is their guard play just has to be better. Rondo obviously just came back for his first game, looked very bad, but this is the first 2 rounds. It's the same thing, that they've had a huge disadvantage at the guard positions when you're looking at Caruso and Danny Green, whether it was Dame and CJ and now Russ and Harden. That's a huge disadvantage. They have to be able to hit some shots. Danny Green, I don't understand what happened to where he's now essentially just such a liability on the court because there's no 3-point shot there. Guys like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope can't hit shots. Caruso, I think, is solid, but you're asking him to play 30 minutes a game, and I don't really think that's his game, especially as a spot-up shooter. I don't really think that's his MO. I think he's a feisty defender. I think he's athletic. I don't think he's a spot-up 3 guy. Like I said, I think 2 of these guards just have to step up for LA so that they can close a lineup with 2 of those guys out there, and they'll be fine. I still think that Houston might steal another game. I think it might go 6, but I'm still leaning LA. I think they get the win tonight. I think they bounce back. I think that they use a lot less Dwight and JaVale. I just think that it's just a better team. I mean, not breaking news, but I just think it's a better team.
Yeah, I think this is very interesting. Also, I just saw right now Bucks and Heat. This game has gone into overtime now. It just went into overtime. Still 5 minutes on the clock. So maybe we can finish that off so we can, finish up quickly so we can finish this off. But yeah, no, I mean, that's the other thing to talk about was the Heat. Let's just go over, let's just talk about the terrible disappointment in your world, the Bruins losing to the Lightning real quick. How are you holding up? Are you okay?
I actually the crazy thing was I was just so upset with those last 3 games because
Mhm.
it's just like if you guys aren't going to show up, what's the point of me showing up and watching?
Yeah.
And it wasn't like that.
Trust me, I know the feeling.
Yeah, and it wasn't like a lack of talent with the Bruins end. I just think that, they weren't skating. They were getting outskated to everything. And I thought it was a bad matchup for a lot of Bruins players. Krug and his defensive liabilities proved to be a huge problem against that Lightning forward group, especially with their size. That was a huge disadvantage. Chara got beaten to every puck against the boards. I love Chara to death, obviously a great Bruin, but he is getting beat to everything. He's just too slow for that sort of series. I thought the only guys I was impressed with that entire series were McAvoy and Marchand. Those are the only 2 guys that showed up every shift. I think McAvoy really cemented himself as a true number 1 defender in the NHL and one of the best in the league. I think that Tampa was just a better team, and they played like a better team, and they showed up, which the Bruins clearly did not. I think the Halak thing obviously kind of derailed them, especially, Tampa Bay is a team that loves to cycle to the point and shoot from the point. A goalie who's 5'9", who's not getting defenders to clear the space is just not going to work. So I think that was the big thing for the Bruins, and Tampa Bay rightfully won.
Yeah, I think that the losing having Halak in there instead of Rask, it was a disappointment. I also think at the same time it's fair to say that I think that Boston scoring 1 goal a game wasn't enough either. Very fun for me, very disappointing for Boston, and I imagine it didn't help with every other team forcing a game 7 after being down 3-1 and Boston just sort of going out. Or maybe it did, maybe just kind of ripping the Band-Aid off. But, again, I think that they could be better. I know a lot of people, I think there's kind of this doom and gloom Boston. The one thing I have to say, though, the way Boston fans, and I know it's not a lot of them, I know it's a small minority, but the way some of these Boston fans will complain about the refs to such an insane degree, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, any call that goes against them, the league is out to get them. And it's not just with this series; it's with every series. It drives me nuts. And again, I know it's a small minority, but it drives me crazy.
I mean, the Bruins were clearly the worst team those last 3 games.
In a game they lost 7-1, people were complaining because a Bruin ran into a ref. It wasn't even the ref's fault. If you look at the wide angle, it drives me crazy.
The Celtics were outplayed this last game. It wasn't anything to do with the refs not calling on Kyle Lowry. It's the same time. Yeah, I mean, there's been probably 2 gripes that I've had with refs throughout my entire life. One of them was the Bruins game last season in the Stanley Cup where they didn't call the trip. That led to the Blues stealing game 5 against us. But obviously, I don't think refs really have as much of an influence as people like to think. It's an easy scapegoat, though. I just, but yeah. So how are you feeling about the Lightning? Are you feeling, are you bought in yet that this could be a cup team?
No, I would never be until if they could be up 8 with 7 seconds left. I won't be convinced. I mean, they're going to have to do it. And before I totally believe them. I don't know. It's so nerve-wracking, I think, to be a Lightning fan. I realize like on paper they're probably the cup favorites at this point, but I can't totally buy in unless until I see it. I think the Islanders, listen, Barry Trotz haunts my nightmares with what he did against us against the Capitals. He coached circles around Cooper. Cooper has sort of proven he can make adjustments a year later, as we saw what he was able to do with the Blue Jackets. But I don't know. Honestly, I feel like we're on kind of a revenge tour right here, where we have the Blue Jackets, the Bruins for 2011, even though we've already beaten them in the past, and then Barry Trotz here. So it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I've been giving my dog a treat every time the Lightning score. So now she gets excited and celebrates every time they score too. Like every time I cheer, she then gets excited. So I've tricked her into that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it'll be interesting. I do think they're the best team. But at the same time, I think that the big thing with Tampa Bay is, are they going to have enough goal scoring? Because it sounds like Stamkos is out the series, I think is what I saw. And I haven't seen Kucherov injury updates. Actually, I went off the grid.
He's going to play. I believe.
I think he's going to be back too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I still like them and the Knights. I still think those are clearly the best 2 teams. But the other 2 teams I think are very interesting in different regards. The Islanders have, I think, the best coach left and the best coach in the league, potentially in Barry Trotz. and I think that Dallas just won't stop scoring. So, something's got to give. I'm still going to go with Tampa Bay and Vegas because I do think they are the best two teams. But yeah, can they get enough scoring without a guy like Stamkos out there? Because Andre Palat's not going to score at that rate, I think, for the rest of the playoffs. At least I hope he doesn't.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think we're good for here. We're at 169 viewers. I think perfect time to end this. Thanks for everyone who stayed on to talk with us. I know a couple people were mad about the hockey talk. I warned you beforehand. Why are you getting mad? But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Next week we'll be recapping week 1, so be on the lookout for that. Until next time, have a good one.
Peace.